One, the chain of custody was broken.
When the sampling is complete, the final step is to complete the chain of custody form and pack the samples up for transport to the lab. The chain of custody recreates the sample path from origin through analysis and provides a documented account of who has handled the sample.
That is documentation that was required to be collected, but it's also good laboratory practice and good forensic practice. We never were provided the chain of custody documentation on the original sample or the portions of sample that were processed and analyzed in the A sample or the B sample. That alone should impugn the test results.
If you can't establish that the sample belonged to the accused, then where's the case?
Two, you're not supposed to be able to get into those samples.
Specially designed packages are used to transport the samples to the lab, which are then kept in a guarded safe.
Which was tested, and then those bottles were put in this container called an envelope that was sealed with a clip. And at least according to them at the time, that envelope couldn't be breached. This gets inserted into a package. And their view was the only way that you could ever pull it out was to snap it. What we learned, and again, you have to focus on it, there's these two little things here that if you push them very carefully with a dental pick, just a simple one that you can pick up at any drugstore, you can open up the envelope and pull it out. You could do it within 10 seconds.
There were other failures of protocol at the collection site. They didn't have a secured laboratory.
It was like that all through Europe because at that time, they didn't really have a system. Each meat promoter, they had their own people doing this stuff. And I know the testing system in Monte Carlo was the worst. You could tell there going to be a lot of mistakes made because those people were not professional people. They really didn't know what they were doing.
And then we get into the issue of the analysis of the A sample. The data that was provided is grossly incomplete. The response on the instrument was such that it evidenced a lot of metabolite 1 present in that sample, but there was a very strong interference by an unrelated chemical, which was not resolved, not explained, not ever described as to what that may be by Mr. Lafarge in the Paris laboratory. The other thing that ultimately came into play is that in this analysis, they also looked for two other naturally occurring steroids called testosterone and epitestosterone.
There's a thing in the urine called the testosterone-epitestosterone ratio. It's like a handprint, so it has to be identical in each of the two samples.
In the A sample, the testosterone-epitestosterone ratio is about 1.12. In the B sample, we ended up with 3 different testosterone-epitestosterone ratios, none of which was a 1.12. They should be the same, but they're completely different. Well, that means those two samples did not originate from the same individual.
You know, it doesn't prove factual innocence, of course, but procedurally, the case, assuming that the samples were shown to be from different people, should have been dismissed out of hand at that point.
More confusing and more confounding, he was tested 1 week later by Dr. Donecke's own laboratory in Cologne, Germany, with a method that is 10 times more sensitive than Mr. Lafarge's. There's no evidence of nandrolone metabolites in the Butch Reynolds sample. Nandrolone is known to stay in the body for weeks and months, in fact, over a year, dependent upon how much has been injected. Clearly, Butch should have been positive again 7 days later if he had actually used nandrolone. This data over and over and over and over and over again demonstrates Butch Reynolds did not take nandrolone. He did not provide a sample with nandrolone metabolites in it, and he was not guilty as accused. He was an innocent man. By the way, we only received probably about 30% at the most of the data that Butch should have been provided. I can only imagine what the other 70% we never received must show.
Dr. David Black was able to articulate, explain, and give us the true details in summary fashion why the urine sample wasn't mine.